he was inspired because he was so angry, all he could experience, and of course you could understand this the same as I can, that for the first few years he was just angry and bitter and why me, what's going on here. He just resented this accident. It was the worst thing that ever happened in his life. And when he was in the hospital, he met a guy who is a Canadian hero. He lost a leg to cancer when he was 19 years old. And he decided to run across Canada on one leg and raise money for cancer research. And unfortunately, cancer came back when he was halfway across the country, so he ran halfway across the country, and then he had to go back in the hospital, and he died shortly afterwards. But Rick Hansen was so inspired by this that he decided that he was going to dedicate himself for the rest of his life to raising money for spinal cord research. And he got the idea that he was going to take a wheelchair around the world. And he did. He went from Vancouver all the way down to the States, through California, and then I think along the Gulf Coast and up the East Coast. He eventually went to China, Australia, around Europe. I'm not sure how many countries he went to, but in the space of about 2 years, I think, he literally went around the world, 25,000 miles.
Oh, yeah.
And he's raised tens of millions of dollars since then and had a huge impact in Canada to raise awareness of spinal cord problems, right? Now, I heard this guy being interviewed on the radio about a month ago, and he got married. He's got a couple of great kids. He's had a great career, He's received the Order of Canada, and, he's a well-known Canadian hero, right? He said if he had the chance right now to go back and avoid that accident at 17 years old, he wouldn't do it. Because he said that experience has been the biggest gift that he's ever received in his life. So the accident didn't change. But everything about it, the impact that he's had on the world and other people, came as a result of him shifting his awareness of what that accident means and the impact that it could have for him and other people in a similar situation. So that's what I mean about changing the past. Each of us have had events, some of them very minor, some of them very major, but they impact us today because of the way we think about them. And Shakespeare said, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
Yeah, and so true.
Exactly. So I mean, lots of people, and I think this is really one of the marks of becoming a mature individual is when you can look back at your past, look back at your parents or the things that happened to you when you were younger, that you have considered for so many years to be negative, and look for the ways that they were actually positive, and you can find learning experiences in the most negative situations.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people say, this experience I had, all the struggles I had when I was a kid, they made me the man or the woman I am today. So that's what I mean about changing the past. It's using your inner awareness to go back in your imagination, re-examine these events that you've experienced, and look at them with a different set of eyes, and learn from them, and you can actually change a negative experience, something that's been bothering you perhaps for years. You can change it into a positive learning experience, and you can move into the future then with a completely different attitude.
The problem is a lot of people will hold a grudge, or, like in his case, there's a lot of people that happen to, they go, why me? They feel sorry for themselves the rest of their life, and they don't move on, and that's the problem. So
absolutely,
yeah. So I mean,
and I think we all do it to some degree. I mean, I'm not free of that either. I have, I'm a lot more philosophical and a lot more calm now than I used to be. I mean, when I was in my 20s and early 30s, I was angry and frustrated because of my experience in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now it seems like a joke. It seems meaningless.
Well, some of that has to do with age and maturity too. I mean, I have 8 kids, and those 8 children, I look at them sometimes, and they range from 24 to 40, and I sit, and I look, and
Right.
I kind of like realize, what they're going through, and and I don't know. It's
Well,
frustrating sometimes,
Well, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It is. I mean, a lot of this that we're talking about, in some ways, it's the natural process of aging and maturing, right?
Yes.
Where I mean, you can look. I mean, with your 8 kids, you can look at your kids now, and you can tell them that, hey, wait a second, if you do this thing that you're thinking of doing, it's going to be a big mistake. You're going to be sorry, But lots of times they won't listen because they can't see it. But you can see it because you've got the insight and the wisdom of your experience, right?
Yeah. Or I've been there,
You've been there. Maybe you made the same mistake.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But again, I still do think, like you falling from the tree. And I really, from what you described, I really think you had an out-of-body experience, maybe a near death or just an experience where, you maybe, I don't know what your life was, at 10 years old, your home life or whatever, but you saw, your future. And it did something in your mind because you knew this is what it was going to be. You didn't give up.
Exactly.
It drove you to do what, that you saw what was going to be. It drove you to make it happen.
Well, as I said, some of the things happened because I just decided to do it and I barged ahead and did it, like getting a university degree finally. I mean, I did that through my own efforts. But becoming a professor, marrying a Chinese lady, I mean, both of those things, in a sense, they happened to me by accident, right? And this is how life is too. Part of it is cultivation. We can cultivate a piece of property. We have I have a yard outside. I can plant plants in there, and I can cultivate those plants. Some of them will grow, some of them won't grow, And at the same time, things can blow in. Seeds can blow in. I got a new little tree growing in a pot outside here. I didn't have anything to do with it, The seed blew in from somewhere. So life is really a combination of accident and design.
Yeah.
And I like what Obama said. We can shape the future. We can't necessarily determine everything exactly, of course, but we can certainly shape it. So my life at the moment is not what I saw when I was 10 years old. Certain broad strokes, Yes, I've written some books. Yes, I travel around. Yes, I help people, gain from my experience and live happier and more successful lives. And yes, I did marry a Chinese lady. Yes, I did become a university professor. But some of those things happened by a fluke, But you're right, and I appreciate you saying so, that one of the things I did was I hung on to that vision and I tried to understand it, and if I could influence it or shape it somehow, I held on to the possibility that I could live a happy and a successful life in spite of the fact that I, failed out of high school and until I was 40, basically didn't have much of an education. So it's possible, to re-energize ourselves and reevaluate ourselves and set new goals, set new limits, and new directions at any time, any age, And from where we are right now, today, we can set some goals and we can improve the quality of our lives by working with our thoughts, working with our imagination, developing some persistence, some vision, some mindfulness, some awareness, setting some goals, and developing the courage and the persistence and the insight to actually claim our place as a co-creator with all the energy in the universe and bring what we want, to some degree at least, into physical reality.
I think that's where a lot of people are scared to do it. I mean, let's face it. I mean, There's a lot of people who want to be doctors, or they want to be lawyers, or they want to be the barber even. It doesn't matter. I mean, at a certain age, you got to sit down and plot out your life at what it's going to be like a year from now. That's what I tell my kids and told my kids. What are you going to do a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and what are you going to do when you're my age?
Exactly. And, I don't know why it is, but most schools, right up until university, they don't teach courses in life planning, goal setting, personal motivation. You have to attend business training seminars or read business books or take courses in become an MBA or something and learn how to plan and how to create a critical path analysis or something to the goal that you have in mind. These kind of ideas should be taught in grade school and in high school.
Oh yeah, I was going to say at least by junior high school that they should be mandatory where it is taught, because I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of intelligent kids coming out of school that have no desires, no wants, no nothing, and live from minute to minute and not even thinking of the future, not planning for the future, and don't care about the future.
Well, I was one of them, I mean, I was not raised to believe that I could be anything, that if you have a goal, you can achieve it, I was basically told, because my parents were British, they were very strictly Catholic, and so the upbringing that I received was do what you're told, know your place, know your limits, don't be overly ambitious, do what you're told, get a job, live your life, do what you're told, don't be too ambitious. That's what, that's basically the message I get from the church, from my parents, from the environment that I grew up in. And it was only much, much later, when I was in my teens and 20s, that I started reading books, about the power of the mind. I got into studying Eastern philosophy, yoga, Buddhism, mindfulness, and then business books, Think and Grow Rich, the power of the subconscious mind, and those kind of books that really expanded my awareness that it's possible for me or anybody using my thoughts to change the kind of life that I am experiencing.
Or will experience.
Yeah. And it's also true that, we, like, for example, I like using the analogy of sports, because in sports, typically people are trying to be the best they can be. And as I say, watching the Masters golf tournament, I enjoy golf. I play golf. I like, I know a lot of golfers. And so you look at someone like, let's say, Justin Rose, right? Well, he came within a hair last year of winning the Masters. He was actually tied with Sergio Garcia after the tournament was over, and they had a sudden death playoff, and he lost, Now, this is a guy, Justin Rose. He's one of the top golfers in the world. His ambition is to win the Masters, right? Well, he may never win it, but he's had a very successful life as a golfer, right? So each of us can have goals and dreams, and I think it's essential that each of us does have goals and dreams. Not so much because we're going to achieve them, even though we're going to try and achieve them, but because of the personalities that we develop in the process of trying to achieve those goals. There's no question that Justin Rose has developed himself into a champion, an internationally known sports figure, philanthropist, leader. Even though he may never win the British Open, he may never win the Masters tournament, So it isn't necessary, really, for us to achieve all of our goals in order for us to be happier and more successful. Just learn that it's possible to achieve sometimes smaller goals, day by day, week by week, month by month, as you said a few moments ago. Have an idea of what you want to do this year. Have an idea of what area of your life, physically, mentally, spiritual, financially, that you'd like to improve in the next year or the next 5 years, and work towards it. And